This is Karima from Hijabi Globetrotter. Today I'm going to talk about a topic that has been long overdue, and honestly, one day sitting can't really summarize the nuances of like what it's like teaching abroad as a person of color. Honestly, I feel like I should write something about it, like a whole book about this. And so, besides all the lovely pictures you see of many travelers that go abroad, especially if they're teaching abroad, there are some experiences that they're not telling you, and for their own sanity. And I've also experienced this, and especially teaching as a person that's Muslim, of African descent. When you're abroad, you're going through layers of prejudice and also trying to meet people halfway. And that is something I really wanted to talk about. Today, I'm going to give the floor to other travelers, especially travelers of color, that have also taught abroad. Teaching abroad as a person of color is
challenging
levels.
So you can see that is not just my experience. Other teachers also experience this if you're not of European or Caucasian descent, or you're not white, as you say in America. Your experience abroad, especially if you're working, is definitely different. So these are the stories of teachers abroad.
Hi everyone, I am Aneesa, or you might know me as Expat Panda, which is the name of my blog and my Instagram.
Hey everyone, my name is AJ Gonzalez. I am from New York City. I met Karima over there.
Just for reference, I've taught in one city in South Africa, which is my home country. I've taught in 2 cities in South Korea. I've taught in 2 cities in the United Arab Emirates, and I taught at one school in Kuwait.
In terms of ESL teaching, I've been doing it for close to 10 years now. I taught in South Korea, stayed there for 5 years. And then afterwards, I taught in New York City, 3.5, 4 years, I think, in a school over there. And right now I'm in my 7th month teaching in Russia.
The first thing is, it all starts with the recruitment process. There's always this kind of disbelief and surprise that the fact that I can speak good English comes with this skin color or this face. Constantly having to deal with that look of surprise when I do a Skype interview, because what my CV doesn't seem to match up with what I look like, even though I come from a country with many different races, cultures and backgrounds. Apparently, if you speak English or if you want to teach abroad, you're supposed to fit this one-fits-all kind of appearance. It used to be kind of disheartening at first, but now I just don't even take it personally. Like, yes, I'm here, I'm qualified, I'm experienced, I can speak English, I'm from South Africa, I look like this, let's all move on.
Have you ever wondered, like, you don't pass the first interview you don't pass the first job interview? And then let's not put all the blame on like other people. Maybe they just don't like me, or there's something, they found a better potential employee. My first year teaching abroad, I couldn't get a job in the metropolitan city because like the hiring practice over there is that, parents pay to have a Western face in the school. And when I say Western, let's just call a spade a spade. They call for a white face in school.
There's also this kind of realization that as a person of color, even if I'm more qualified or more experienced, person who is white with the same qualifications or experience, or even less so, tends to earn more than me. Again, at first I took this personally, but now it's just like, what do I do? So it's just frustrating when you realize these things. And I'm not saying that these are, happening everywhere, that these things are happening everywhere. They're not. But it is my general experience and my overview of what happens in a lot of countries that I've worked in.
So, I had to start out outside the city, in a farm. I live in mostly like a farm place, like a farm area. And coming from New York, that's just like, why am I waking up to the sound of cows? That is such a culture shock to me. But I just had to get that experience. I had to that's how they know that, yeah, he can teach, or yeah, he's a good hire. And then after my first year, I moved up to Seoul. I stayed there for a subsequent 4 years. But it's harder as a person of color, especially a Southeast Asian, because we also have to put that out there. There's a whole, I wouldn't say like we hate each other, but there are stereotypes of how Southeast Asians are viewed in East Asia. And it's not the best stereotypes. But I have to be like, yes, hey guys, I can teach you ABC as well as John Smith from Wisconsin. So that's the thing.
Another thing is that when you get a job and you feel secure and you've signed a contract and you're like, great, so I'm A4 away, but you're actually not, because that comes with its own set of challenges. So for example, in certain schools, I was asked to take a language proficiency test to demonstrate my flawless ability to speak English. Yet I have a degree in English education. All my degrees are in English from an English-speaking university. I'm able to have a full conversation with you in unaccented English, but yet I still have to prove that I can speak this language, which doesn't make any sense to me. Yet, person, again, who's white, from my country, would not be asked to take this language proficiency test. I've never taken it. I've just shut that down, and if there was any kind of job where I was supposed to do it, I just didn't accept that job, or I just ignored it. But yeah, it's kind of demeaning to be asked to do that when, as I said, my specialization is in English education.
The way it works applying abroad, just applying outside of the United States, you have to put a photo on your CV or on your resume. And, in the United States, you're not supposed to do that. That's the thing. But outside the United States, you are supposed to put your photo in your CV, because your potential employers just want to see how you look like. And that's messed up for a lot of reasons. That's messed up for a lot of reasons. Yeah.
Another thing that's really common is that your qualifications and experience look great on a piece of paper, which is exactly what the Ministry of Education wants. So the school wants you because they know that the ministry is going to approve you because you've got everything that looks good on paper. However, the school also wants to maintain a certain image, so they go and hire a lot of white teachers from developed countries, and these people not necessarily having any qualifications to do with teaching or any teaching experience at all. And so they come in, and me, as the most experienced and qualified person, I'm now supposed to be explaining how to do these basic things for these people who are here just to bring up a certain image of the school, but they don't have a clue on how to do anything education-based, because, as I said, they don't have any training. So that is really frustrating. White people, if you're watching this, please do not apply for jobs that you don't know how to do. And schools stop hiring white people by virtue of the fact that they're white and they have nothing to offer.
If you're a citizen of a Western country, and when I say Western country, I mean Canada, United States, United Kingdom, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, and you are privileged to teach English around the world because of your passport. Okay? But as a person of color, you have different levels of access. Meaning, if you're very privileged and you're a male Caucasian, you can get jobs much more easily versus if you are a non-male Caucasian. Because as a person of color, you always have to prove to your potential employers that yes, you do speak English, you are a native speaker, and you can do the job. Whereas if you're a white person, you get a pass right away. I do have to say it is slowly changing, but that's the reality of this industry.
Sometimes you have parents who want their children's teacher to look a certain way. So when they see me, then they're like, oh, okay, can this person really teach? Which is always funny, because sometimes I would be the most qualified teacher in the whole department or the most experienced, but yet the parent would be more inclined to want somebody who's white to teach their child, even though they have no qualification and no experience. And one of the incidents that I had when I taught in Kuwait was that, the parent was having a full conversation with my supervisor in Arabic at my doorway, thinking I didn't understand what she was saying, even though I did. And she was asking the supervisor if I was really qualified to teach, because based on what she saw, she's never met me before, she's never had a proper conversation with me. Based on what she saw, she didn't think that I was a good fit for her child. Of course, the supervisor was pretty clear about my abilities and encouraged the parent to have a conversation with me, which we did, and she was able to see that I could speak English way above her level. But the thing is that I requested for the child to be moved to another class because I don't want to deal with parents like that. So these are some of the things that happen when you already have a job. It's hard not to take it personally, but you have to distance yourself from those kind of incidents.
Always have to prove that I'm American. Like, example, like when I was in Korea, I tell them, oh, they ask me where am I from? And I'm like, oh, I'm from New York City. And they're like, oh, okay, is your dad American? That's always the follow-up question that I got. Like, is your dad American? And that has a lot of implications, and it's just, no, both of my parents are Filipino. And they're like, oh, you're Filipino, you're not American. I'm like, no, I am. I'm Filipino American. And it's just the whole like ethnicity versus nationality, having grown up in multiple cultures in homogeneous countries, that's really not a thing yet. Slowly changing. But the time I was there, it wasn't such a big thing yet. One of the most annoying questions I got here, and I'm not gonna lie, this is so small. It's not really a big deal. I was in a game night with like a bunch of strangers, and then, they were checking on one of the words, and one guy was like, "Yeah, hey AJ, since you're technically an American, can you tell me if this is right?" I'm like, "What does technically? I mean, what does technically?" What are you trying to say there? That's all I'm saying. What are you trying to say there? That's a backhand shade. Now it could be because of lack of language, cultural thing. Of course, there are many factors, but just like when I first heard that, I'm like, technically, it's an I am. There's a difference between technically and I am. But you know what though? Here in Russia, if people ask about my ethnicity, and I tell them, yeah, I'm Filipino. A lot of people know where that is, okay, and they're like, oh, that's cool because a lot of Russians go there for holiday, and I've been mistaken for Central Asian here a few times, and that's just because of lack of knowledge, and that's just it. There's nothing inherently prejudiced or racist about it. It's just they're trying to put my face into something that they know, and that's it. And what's known here, if you're Asian, is either Chinese or Central Asian.
I've had some incredible experiences teaching abroad. Experiences that I wouldn't have been able to have if I had stayed in my home country. And one of those things is travel opportunities. I've traveled to over 50 countries, which is not something that I ever thought I'd be able to do. I know that if I was still teaching in South Africa, it would be for a whole lot less money and without the opportunities that I have, especially here in the Middle East. I've also been able to meet people from so many different countries, eat so many different cuisines. And I met my partner when I was teaching in Abu Dhabi. So on a personal level, teaching abroad has really fulfilled everything that I wanted to do outside of work.
Oh, one of the best memories I got, it was my first year of teaching. So my first year I was teaching high school, I was teaching high school in Korea. I had a group of students come up to me and said, "Teacher, thank you so much for teaching us. I learned so much." And I was just like, wow. And that was my first year teaching. I didn't know everything. I didn't know what I was doing. I was so scared my first year teaching. There was a lot of bluffing going on my first year of teaching. So that was really cool. Nowadays, when students come up to me and say, "Hey, thank you for teaching us in our pace," right? And thank you for going over the pronunciation. A lot of other teachers don't do that. Thank you for correcting us and not letting us get away with things. I was like, yeah, that's cool. Honestly, I've been blessed. I'm not gonna lie. Even in Korea, I work for the government. It was equal opportunity. And here, my company has treated me very, very well. No problems. And also, New York City, in my former places of employment when it comes to education, I've had no problems with them in terms of like uh, being treated differently. I was always treated the same, no matter what.
I'm not at all trying to discourage anybody from teaching abroad if you are a person of color. In fact, I'm trying to give you a fuller picture so that when you do go in, and I really, really do want you to go out of your comfort zone and teach in different countries. Mostly because I want to normalize the fact that people of color are more than just maids or construction workers or laborers. I want us to be known that we have skill sets that can benefit people, that we can show up and give 100% of ourselves in the classroom or whatever profession we choose to go into. And I want it to be normal that a person like me can speak English, can have a master's in education, can be a good teacher and shape a student's future, which is why I think it's important that we as people of color don't stop showing up. We keep migrating globally and being the best teachers that we can be. So I really hope that this helped you and it opened your eyes to the kind of experiences that are out there. And I hope it didn't discourage you. In fact, I hope it encouraged you to get out there and live your best life while teaching abroad.
Don't let your hang-ups stop you from applying for a job that you think they won't accept you. Just keep on applying no matter what. Just apply. Prepare to get rejected, because you will be rejected no matter what. And do accept the fact that if you're a POC, there's an extra barrier that you have to cross. Coming from New York City, we're a stubborn breed. That's the thing, we're a stubborn breed. So you definitely have to be stubborn. And in general, you gotta learn how to say no. Just learn how to say no. That's the thing, because bosses will ask you to do things that may go well beyond your contract. And if you're a pushover, it's just gonna keep on happening. You have to learn how to say no.
Thank you guys so much for sharing your story. Honestly, these are the voices that I like to hear. It's something that's not often said, but a lot of teachers of color do experience this. That's why I'm using my platform to share voices that you don't often hear. So, of course, teaching has its good and its bads, but it's good to identify some of these challenges that can happen when you're a teacher that is not white. So yeah, thank you so much, AJ and Aneesa, for sharing your stories. And let me know what your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you do have a story kind of similar to that, please let me know. I'd love to share it as well.
If you have any personal questions for me, especially about teaching in the Gulf, just reach out to me on my blog or my Instagram, and I will be happy to get back to you.
Once again, thank you for watching. Bye. Hasta luego.